There's a happy land of promise over in the great beyond, where the Savior of earth shall soon the glory share, where the souls of men shall enter and live on forevermore. Oh, sing everybody will be happy over there. Hey, now everybody will be happy over there, over there. I know they will be happy over there. And we will shout and sing his praises through the never-ending praise. Everybody will be happy over there. Hey, now everybody will be happy over there, over there. Yes, they will be happy over there. And we will shout and sing his praise. Everybody will be happy over there. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus, singing, no, not a one, no, not a one, and none else could heal all our souls' diseases, singing, no, not a one, no, not a one. And Jesus knows all about our struggles, and he will guide till the day is done. Well, there's not a friend like the lowly Jesus, singing, no, not a one, no, not a one. You know Jesus knows all about our struggles, and he will guide till the day is done. Well, there's not a friend like the lowly Jesus, singing, no, not a one, no, not a one.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Good morning. It is always a privilege to have this opportunity to stand before you and to bring you a word from God's word. And this morning, we're going to talk about change. Change. How many of you don't like change? Right? There is comfort in routine. Yes, right? Nobody likes for somebody else to, and we've coined a phrase, to flip the script, right? All right. I always tease Brenda, you know, I am a classic hunter, right? If we're going to go to the store, I want to know, what are we going to get, right? Because if you're looking for blue shoes, I can find every blue shoe in the store in about 5 minutes, right? I hate to shop. And so, we always, if we go out and it's like, oh, we need to go by the store to do, X, Y, and Z, right? X, Y, and Z is on the list, right? And so then she's like, oh, but there's a queue. And I'm like, you are adding on to the list, right? So we like routine, right? We like routine and we like normalcy. We like, things to be the same, right? And change, sometimes we get uncomfortable with that. However, if you think about it, we do live lives that change all the time, right? If you're in grade school, you're going to change, classes for the most part once a year, right? As you grow up, your shoe with those things down there, shoe size changes, right, from year to year. And if you're a parent, I remember probably, the first time it hit me, I think we took the boys to Standards. And was it Standard? What? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I went all the way back to Standard shoes that used to be on Hawthorne. Y'all remember that? Long time ago. Woo, yeah. Took the kids to Stride Right. I'm sorry. Let's get back to the Fox Hills Mall and Stride Right. Took the kids there and I got sticker shock when they charged them $30 for something this big? Really? Can't we find cheaper shoes, right? I'm like, we got to buy these every 6 months. So, we kind of get used to changing styles and changing hairstyles and changing clothes from time to time. And as you matriculate through school, you change friends. I remember, growing up in Carson, we went to Anna Lee, and, you have a group of friends there, and then they pull in about 6 elementary schools. They pull in Broad Acres, they pull in Anna Lee, they pull in Leapwood, they pulled in Stephen White, and some other schools, and we all landed at Curtis Junior High School. And for 3 years, we went to junior high school for 3 years back then. It was called junior high, not middle school. But to bring you guys over up to speed, for 3 years, we spent time getting to know new friends, right? And establishing relationships, only to when we got to the 9th grade, they didn't split us up, right? Some went to Banning, some went to Carson, some went to Gardena, right? And some moved away. And so you had to go through that change, and you spent 3 years in high school cultivating even more relationships, only to, graduate, or in our case, we moved away, right? And so we had to establish new friends for 2 years, and then, you went to college, and then, so we're used to, if you go through just that educational system, you kind of get used to change in that situation, right? They say Americans buy a new car or a different car about, on average, every 5 years, right? And if you're like us, I remember we moved, we lived in Los Angeles, then we moved to Carson, and then we moved to Cerritos, and then my parents moved to Chino. I never claimed that. Right? And so that happened, and if your life is like that, you've gone through that change. Well, today I just want to talk to you about just one truth. As you're reading through Hebrews, right? We went through the exhortation part, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You get into the 13th chapter, and he's just talking about practical living, right? How does the exhortation that I told you in chapters 1 through 12, how do you now live them out, right? What does it look like to actually live out this idea that Jesus Christ is elevated over all things, and you should put your faith in him, and having placed your faith in him, you should then persevere through whatever life has given you, right? That's kind of what he is saying in chapter 13. But right in the middle of that, he just drops truth, right? The writer just drops truth. It's not exhortation. There's not an imperative there. He just, kicks a little truth in there in case they forgot. And it's simply this in Hebrews 13 and 8. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. So just very briefly, I want to share with you 4 points, and then we'll close. I just want to talk to you on the subject, changeless. Changeless. For all the change that we might have in the world, Jesus Christ doesn't change, right? He is the same, right? He is the same. He doesn't change. He doesn't vary. He doesn't flip the script on you, right? He doesn't add on to the list. As he was at the beginning, he is now, and he will ever be. Right? And there's four truths that we get from this, and that I just want to share with you, and we're not going to be long. Number one, he's consistent, right? He's consistent. What you see is what you get. But not just what you see, what you saw is what you get. And guess what? What you will see is what you get. Jesus is consistent. He doesn't change. And the one motivating thing that we can consistently point to with Jesus is that he loves us, right? That he loves us. He loved us in the beginning. He loves us now, and he will love us forevermore, right? He is consistent. And what goes right along with that idea that he is consistent, number two, because he's consistent, he's reliable. You can depend on Jesus. Now you can see how that works. He's talking to these people who have a crisis of faith. We talked about this already, right? Have a crisis of faith, struggling with living out and living right and living good and living, persevering through struggles and persevering through heartaches and persevering through things that they're suffering with. And he's telling them, he just drops truth down in case you didn't understand from the first 12 chapters. You can rely on Jesus. You can trust him. He's trustworthy. He's consistent. He's not going to change. There's no confusion with him. You know just who he is, what he expects, where he's going. What he says to Larry, he also says to me, right? Sometimes you can't pull truth from anybody, right? Sometimes you just can't. You talk to somebody and they tell somebody one thing and they'll tell somebody another thing, right? Sometimes even in the same breath, right? I remember, having to confront somebody because they were saying one thing to a friend of mine, and the friend of mine came and told me, this is what this person said. And I said, well, if this is what they said, let me then go and get it right. And so I went from having heard that information to the person when I saw them talking to that person, and I said, I understand this is how you feel. And they're like, I didn't say that. That's not what I said altogether. And I said, well, I saw you, or I didn't say that, but I'm thinking. I saw you talking to this person, and then this person left with concern and said, I was just talking to him, and this is what he said to me about you, about how he felt about you. And I said, hold up then. Let me then go. And I didn't say that. But what the author wants the readers to understand is that Jesus is the same. He's consistent. He's not wishy-washy, right? And because he's not wishy-washy, you can rely on him. He's dependable, right? You can trust him. You can set your clock to him, right? You ever have that dilemma? We pull out our phones now, so it's not so much now, and they're kind of keyed to the atomic clock, and so we kind of have that dependable time. But remember when you used to have to call the time, right? Y'all like, what? You call the time? I still remember the number, 853-1212, right? How many of you know that number, right? Because you wanted to have to go somewhere that had the right time, right? So when we got ready to set our clocks, we'll call the time. Dial 853-1212, and there was no such thing as speed dial. You had to. But it changed, right? But guess what? Jesus is the time, right? He is the time yesterday, today, and forever. He's the one that you need to base your life on, right? That you need to set the time of your spirit to, because he's consistent. He doesn't change, and he's reliable. And guess what? Because he's consistent and because he's reliable, number 3, he's in control. He's in control. Because he's consistent, right? He knows everything. He doesn't change. So that when change comes, Jesus, he knows the change. But guess what? All the change in the world. Just think about the millions of little chains that are being linked together every day. Right? How many of you drive to work? Right? Not most everybody, right? How many of you are driven to work? How many of you drive to school or are driven to school? Right? Every drive is not the same. Right? It's not the same. There's a nut, right? Can we talk for just a second? I have my little route that I drive to work. And I pretty much take the same route to work every day. And, you know, I have the little back streets that I go down, and, you know, one of the back streets is Plymouth Street, which is right off of Centinela. You know, Centinela backs up, so I usually go over a block and go down Plymouth. And Plymouth is about this wide. About this wide. There's cars parked on each side. And so there's a very, very small space of air that allows two cars to pass at the same time. And it never fails that as you're going down there, there's a car coming the other way, and they're doing about 40, 50 miles an hour. And you're like, what are you doing? We got a very small window of air that can happen, and here you are doing about 50 miles an hour. You know, and when I see that, I just kind of pull over as far as I can, and I just stop and wait. Because I'm saying this fool is going to get both of us killed, right? So there's always somebody like that, you know, or somebody who just doesn't want to follow the rules. So even if I take the same route every day, it's never the same, right? And don't let me get started with going home, because I drive home based upon how I feel, right? I mean, really, it's just like, you know, I don't feel like going down Compton. You know, let me turn here on Central, and then I'm going to go over to Rosecrans. And when I get to Rosecrans, when I get to the freeway, I'll see how I feel, because maybe I'm not feeling the harbor today. Maybe I'll just keep on down Rosecrans, and then after I pass the freeway, it's like, am I going to turn on Van Ness? Am I going to turn on Crenshaw? Am I going to go all the way down? You know, there's options. What I'm trying to tell you is that there's like this chain of chains, or this chain of change that goes on every day, that we're linking together, that we're putting out in the universe. But what the writer wants us to know, that with all that variance, Jesus doesn't change. The world may change, but Jesus doesn't change. And he doesn't change because he's in control of it all. So I know you might say, but God, you don't understand. You don't understand. I have this. And Jesus is like, I got you. I still love you. That doesn't change. Well, Jesus, you don't know how bad my life is. You don't know how much I've done. Jesus wants us to know, I got you. Your bad doesn't change the love that I have for you, right? Doesn't change how I feel. It doesn't change what I have in plan and in store for you. We may change, but God is never going to change. We need to understand that. Because he is in control, and our changes of life don't change who God is and what God has done and what God will do. and what God will continue doing, okay? Because he doesn't change. And finally, because Jesus is the same, he's eternal. He's eternal. He's not going to come to an end. He's not going to give up on you. He's not going to forsake you. He's not going to throw you away. His consistency, his reliability, right? His control is never going to end. It's going to last forever. And those are truths that we can build our life on, right? Those are truths that give us a solid foundation for living life in this changing world. For 8 years, we were living the life, right? We got a black president. He understands the plight of the African American. He's gone through the African American experience. He is going to put more African Americans in office and on the bench, and you know, he's our president. But things change, right? Things change. Right? I just read something this morning. It says under this current president, the bench judges who are appointed have become increasingly whiter, increasingly male, increasingly conservative, and increasingly whiter than his predecessor. That changes. Things change. But Jesus is still in control, right? He's still in control. And he's not going to lose control, right? So we need to not just sing the song, we have to live the experience. That my hope is built on nothing less, right? It's built on nothing less than Jesus, right? Jesus and his righteousness. And somewhere I hear him saying, seek first. Seek first. Seek me first, right? Put me in first place, and everything else is gonna fall where it may, but I'm not going to change. And so, folks, this simple application. Build your life on Jesus. He's not going to give up on you because he's consistent. He's not going to let you down because he's the same. He won't forsake you because he's in control forever. So he gives you the invitation. Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest unto your soul, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. He's not going to change. And so let's put our life and build our life on Christ. The lesson is yours. Let's stand and sing.
Awesome. God is awesome. God is